for thousands of years.
They're like, we got it right on the first try.
You got it right the first time. Barbs, it
No
sticks
notes.
in.
What?
Nice.
Fucking retractable.
Talking about
We don't need to go any further. We're good. We figured it out.
I hate it. I hate what I stumbled into.
Talking about bug penises.
No thanks.
Let's not talk about the image that Gino had to delete that I posted in the Discord as well.
Pete would never have known, but now he does. It wasn't.
I mean, I Google bug penises every day. I have a Google alert.
No, I posted a picture to the married members of the Deep Listens.
And by to them, he means he added each of us so that we were specifically disrupted from our days. All right, let me do the countdown and we can start this stupid podcast. God damn it!
You called the podcast Balls Deep.
God damn it!
Okay, man, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Now, come on, now crank this motherfucker up.
Break it down like this.
Hello, Internet. Gino, that Pinguino Greco here again with another episode of Deep Listens, and today we are once again discussing the NBA, which means it's time for yet another one of our unfortunately named Balls Deep podcasts. It's a reference to basketball. When we say balls, that's what we mean, basketballs, and if you think anything else, you're the sicko. Joining me, as always, to discuss bouncing basketballs, Pete Busby.
Hey, what's going on? Excited to talk hoops in what is a very, for now, let's just say non-traditional season. I do have a fun basketball fact for you. So, yeah, in the very early days of basketball until 1913, when the ball went out of bounds, in order to get it back into play, the ref would toss it in bounds, and the first team to touch it got possession. But, fairly obviously, this led to lots and lots of people getting hurt. So in 1913, they changed it to our present rule. Last team that touched it loses possession.
So what you're saying is modern players are soft.
That is always the message of this podcast and any basketball player who has retired.
All right,
Yes.
Charles Barkley.
That other voice you hear is Chris ZombiePie Redacted. Hello.
I am a Sacramento Kings fan, and that is why I drink. However, I will say that I wish to issue a public personal thanks to the T-Wolves, the Warriors, the Hornets, the Bulls, the Cavs, the Hawks, the Pistons, the Knicks, the Wizards, the Suns, and the Spurs for passing on Tyrese Halliburton. So I have a special label 1868 hard cider from the fine makers of Martinelli's Gold Medal. So Martinelli's is now getting into the hard cider game,
Oh,
and
shit.
let's see how this goes.
That's probably incredible. Martinelli's is good stuff. Has anyone been able to figure out why Martinelli's has such an odd unit of measure for their apple juice?
This is really
is it?
good.
Like, they're
I mean,
little.
of the many times that I've drank on the podcast, one of which was me shotgunning a Boilermaker, you may recall in an earlier episode of the Deep Listens podcast. This is quite good. I think the one thing that I don't like about Martinelli's, you were talking about their units, is like, I like the Martinelli's juice. I do like the sparkling cider, but I like their juice. I don't like how it's that little weird shaped, squat, short bottle.
Yeah, that's my
I just
problem.
want a regular bottle of apple juice.
They have very small glass bottles, Pete. I don't know if you've seen Martinelli's bottles, but they're very small.
Maybe. I mean, I don't drink much apple juice, but I feel like if I'm picturing an apple juice bottle, that's probably the one I'm picturing.
Have you
Yes.
seen Red Stripe beer?
Yes.
That is basically what they do for their apple juice.
Okay. That is weird.
Martinelli's, the red stripe of apple juice.
That's really insulting to Martinelli's.
It's true. All right, well, before we get into the basketball talk, our normal housekeeping, you can reach out to the podcast at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment sections, and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. You can also support the podcast on patreon.com/deeplistens. Thank you to our newest patron who joined recently. If you support the show on Patreon, you will get access to our Discord, where you can talk to the host of the show, and you can also learn about a new upcoming unnamed show that may or may not be out by the time this podcast comes up.
We haven't recorded it yet.
That's fine. So probably won't be. but we'll see. So yeah, there's a tease. So without further ado, oh, and I guess just a shout out. I've been recently listening to the Bring It In podcast from True Hoop. Perhaps you've heard of Henry Abbott or David Thorpe. They were both ESPN contributors for a long time. Henry Abbott did the True Hoop Collective, which was where a lot of the like different city-specific blogs that ESPN would feature, where that came from. So he's now spun off into his own thing. So he has a podcast. He has also a subscription-based newsletter sort of deal. So check it out if you like hoops and left-leaning politics as well.
Are either of you fans of All But Smoke?
No.
Oh, it's
Good
so
title,
good.
though.
It's Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson just shooting the shit with retired NBA players, and then obviously both of them are smoking marijuana as they interview people.
Sounds about right. Yeah,
It's great.
A lot of my like listening to former players, their opinions tend to be real bad, and that's why I tend to avoid that content.
Steven Jackson's a cool dude.
He is a very cool guy.
The other problem you get from former players, too, is they're overly politic, but I don't feel like you'd get that problem with Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes. I don't feel like they're holding much back.
No.
Steven Jackson's ability to be employed by ESPN is frankly incredible.
Have either of you seen what Don Nelson looks like nowadays?
Is he just Hawaiian shirts all the time?
He's Hawaiian
leaning
shirts,
all
but he
the way
has
into the
dreadlocks, and he owns a marijuana farm.
Oh my God! What a
He's
king!
great.
Yeah, what a king! Get it? All right. Well, without further ado, this year's NBA season has been very weird.
You don't say.
Yeah. So for those who do not pay close attention, this year they have been trying to distance teams at all times. They're outside of playing. There are no fans in the stands in all but 7 arenas, I believe, and most of those arenas are based in Texas.
Toronto can't even play in their native country.
Toronto is not based out of Toronto this year. Pete, do you know where Toronto's playing?
It was in Florida, wasn't it?
Tampa,
yes. Of course. If you want to get away from COVID, you should go to Florida, the safest state in the union.
Especially Tampa, sunny Tampa. So yeah, that entire team is now either away from their families or they have uprooted their families for 6 months to play
Which
this
might
season.
explain why they're doing poorly right now.
Yep. There's a bunch of stuff that's really irregular. Players are coming in and out of the lineups because any exposure to COVID means you need to quarantine for 7 days, which means you're not available to your team for 7 days. That doesn't mean even if you've caught COVID. If you have had exposure to someone, they're trying to be cautious about it, which has led to multiple game postponements. There are entire teams that now are not playing.
And players leaving mid-game, which is always weird to see.
Yep.
There's that. There are the people who, after taking a postponement or time off, coming into a game and then like immediately just getting injured because their bodies just have not worked out or exercised enough.
Yep.
I think this has been really depressing to watch after, I mean, this is something that we'll probably talk about, is like after the NBA did the responsible thing with the bubble, which was almost an industry standard or the gold standard of how to continue in the midst of the pandemic, to go from that to this, which, you know, extenuating circumstances, the players agreed to it, whatever, has been disappointing.
Yeah, it's been an injury just cavalcade. Just like big name players. Kevin Love's been out. Russell Westbrook's been out. Who else has? There've been
John
a lot
Wall.
Of, John Wall has been hurt.
But John Wall hasn't gotten injured. He's just gotten COVID.
Okay.
Kyrie
Still-
disappeared for like
2 weeks.
days, and nobody knew why. Did we ever find out why?
No, he hasn't said, and his team
Excellent.
has not said.
Excellent. Vintage Kyrie.
Yeah. So.
Well, I mean, did you see him walk around the stadium with sage while burning sage to do something? I don't know. Kyrie's just doing Kyrie things.
He cleansed the
I
evil
suspect-
spirits from the Boston Garden with sage.
If the Nets get the thumbs up that they can finally trade DeAndre, I figure they'll trade DeAndre for a pound of sage and maybe a take backsies on Jared Allen.
Can I mention my favorite COVID subplot of the season so far?
Sure.
Ooh, there's many.
Yeah, this one's actually at least slightly fun instead of just harrowing. But it's the way James Harden weaponized COVID to help
Right.
promote his trade out of Houston. So he started just posting videos, I think, of him at a strip club.
Yes.
He's
In
at a
order to be
birthday
like-
party.
Yeah, a lot of stuff. And it's like, Houston, this is how it is now. Take it or leave it.
Yeah, I think he was at DaBaby's birthday party, if I remember
Yep.
correctly, and he gave DaBaby a honey bun for his birthday, which
Like
apparently
the
is
tasty cake?
it's apparently $100,000 in cash.
Oh, not like just the snack cake.
No,
No.
Oh, okay.
I think that was what.
You know, as someone who
that's the
has it
unit.
on authority, but not personally, I want to make this very clear that the minimum amount to make it rain is $1,000. He made it rain, so to speak.
Yes, and he also showed up to the season maybe 20 to 30 pounds overweight.
It was great. And
he was still scoring like 36 points a game. It was
still
incredible.
scoring 30 points, drawing fouls. He just was not running, let's just say.
Yeah, didn't have to.
Which was super unfair to John Wall, because John Wall spent an entire year to get healthy, in shape, and was, prior to like him getting COVID, like was playing some of the best basketball I think we've seen John Wall play in years.
Oh, most definitely. Especially coming off the Achilles. I mean, he's looking sharp.
He looks
Yeah.
sharp. Boogie, not so much, but I mean, for him, it's probably the end of the road. But yeah, John Wall looks good. I just, it feels super unfair to him that, gets traded out of the city and the team that he helped prop up and make relevant for a handful of years. Say what you will about his money. Yes, he's overpaid, but not necessarily overrated, but playing just good basketball, and then just James Harden being a piss baby.
Yep, and now he gets to play with Victor Oladipo. So, first things first, have either of you watched much of this season? Have you seen many of the games? Because they are odd. What have you thought of trying to watch games mid-COVID and what it's done to games themselves?
The only thing I've actively enjoyed, I guess, when you compare it to previous seasons, is watching Jokic set the world on fire.
Mm-hmm.
My man Jokic, the extravagant tortoise, averaging a triple-double, killing it.
He dropped
But,
like 50 pounds, it feels like.
Yeah. He's like, because he didn't have long enough to get back out of shape in between the end of last season and the start of this one.
Basketball Reference currently has him leading assists per game, which, if he's able to maintain that, it would be the first time in the history of the NBA or ABA that a center will lead the league in assists per game. Just
he's
bananas.
He's just killing it. But
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason I said that's pretty much the only thing I've been enjoying. Let's be kind and say play's been uneven.
Yeah.
You haven't been enjoying JoJo's MVP campaign? Because I actually have been enjoying that. I mean, even if it comes at the cost of watching Ben Simmons look weird, but
Yeah, that's my only. I mean, I like the shooters we now have. My only issue is that we've sort of sidelined Ben Simmons in a way that was probably always coming.
it felt inevitable. But at least, Joel Embiid looks good. He's like second statistically in the big categories that you want him to be working on. And he's shooting fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a weird year. There are so many back-to-backs. There's a lot of home and homes where two teams are playing 2 nights in a row at the same arena because they don't want to have as much travel. And then there are just back-to-backs where like teams are flying in and flying out and playing back-to-backs because they're trying to fit so many games into a much compressed time frame.
Speaking of the Wizards, to go back to the Wizards, we still don't know how they're going to make up like missing almost a month.
Yeah, so the Washington Wizards haven't played a game in like a week or two because they they don't have enough players who are healthy and who have passed the COVID protocol to run a team. You actually shared this earlier, CP. The Wizards have signed a bunch of free agents just to fill a roster to technically play games. Like, there's not even an illusion that this team will be the same team, a real team, have any sort of contention. They just literally want to put bodies onto courts so that they can get their TV money and maybe get some ticket revenue. Though I don't think Washington's allowing fans, but just so that they can get some TV money again. Like, what are we doing? Like, we're rolling out G League players.
I mean, Luka basically called this at the beginning of the season. Like, people in Dallas were asking him, what's going to matter for the contenders this season. And if I can quote Luka, which team is not going to have COVID-19 positive people? Like, that's basically how you win championships this year. It's not defense. It's avoiding COVID.
Yeah, I mean, there are at least the Wizards have had a bunch of games derailed. The Celtics had a bunch of games derailed. It's hard to even know what the standings mean when there are some teams that have played like 10 games and others that have played 15 and closing out on 20. Some teams just do not look right because they have a bunch of new players and there was no preseason to speak of. Like, there were two to three games that you got, almost no practice. There are still almost no practices. Most of these players do not get access to their normal trainers and training regimen that they would have on a regular season. So, like, the massages that help keep their muscles from tightening up and getting injured, a lot of the sort of stretching and cold baths, all the special treatments that these guys need on a day-to-day basis to play at the level they do without getting hurt is not happening, and injuries are just through the roof. And that's not even including COVID. So it's just such a weird season. Looking at the standings, so many teams are just 500, and I don't know if it means they're bad or even average. A bunch of them, like a bunch of these games, are being played without their best players. They're back-to-back, so people are trying to rest occasionally. Sometimes you're just completely fried because you can't have a normal routine and you're still playing back-to-backs.
You have teams that have only, like you said, only played 11, 10 games. Like the Wizards have only played 11 when you're supposed to have played 16 at this point.
Yeah.
It's a weird season. In terms of, like, going back to your question, like, what has the watching experience been? Not been great. I mean, I think we mentioned this on the last podcast, but this season highlights how completely irrelevant it is to have home court advantage. So, like, what even are these, like, records going to translate into? Like, big open-ended question there.
Yeah, I mean, any sort of home court advantage that would come from fans and from cheering and all that sort of stuff, it's just gone this season. The only teams, I think some of the Florida teams, and I know the Cavaliers have fans in the crowd. Houston definitely does. I think Dallas might. I think Utah does. Basically a bunch of red state teams with red state owners. With more conservative leaning owners have just said, have fans.
Sure, we'll let you go. It's also just wild, right? In terms of, like, so I feel bad for the players, even though, yes, someone will probably point out that the players agreed to this. I mean, they don't really have a choice. I feel bad for the rookies. I feel bad for all of the college players that, they've been presented with transitioning into the NBA as their viable way out, so to speak. I feel bad for all of the support staff that work at stadiums or sports franchise that are still out of work. Mm-hmm. And
I mean,
just to make it kind of slightly comical, the fact that there are no fans, the fact that there's very little feedback and it's all, like, piped in sound effects, it's made me realize that play-by-play commentary is dog shit nowadays.
Yeah, I don't know if you've watched a lot of play-by-play. There's a lot of times nowadays where the actual announcers are not in the stadium. So they are watching the same feed you are and then trying to commentate on it. And, like, they get names wrong sometimes. They can't see the play any better than we can, so they make bad calls. They're doing their darndest, but it's just really tough. They're trying,
but it's like, it's bad. It's bad all around.
Yeah, I gotta say, when I see on League Pass some of these segments where they have the dancers or the mascot or, any of these kind of supplementary staff trying to do their normal routine for the stream, it just feels really weird. just like having a drum line play in an empty stadium in front of no one and trying to get hyped up. Yeah,
and I think that's
it's a weird year.
why some teams like the Hawks or the T-Wolves or the Raptors or even the Heat have had angst in the locker room, whether it's player-led drama or just like on-court performance-based drama. But there seems to be a lot of angst in the teams that are not at the top, or even teams that are in the middle that feel like they could have aspired to more.
Yeah, and it's so hard to know. Like, there's just so many teams that, like, the entire East, the 76ers are 11-5 in first place, followed by the Pacers at 9-6, the Bucks at 9-6, the Celtics at 8-6, the Cavaliers at 8-7, the Hawks at 8-7, the Nets at 9-8, the Knicks at 8-9, Bulls 7-8, Magic 7-9, Heat 6-8, Raptors 6-9, Hornets 6-9, and then in the very bottom we've got the Washington Wizards, who've played 11 games at 3-8, and the Detroit Pistons at 3-12. Like, almost every single team from 2 to fucking 13 are separated by like 4 games.
Gino, can I ask about the Knicks and their league-leading defense too?
Yeah.
What the
Let's
hell?
talk about it.
What's going
so
on?
Gino,
Tom
have an
Thibodeau.
intervention.
Tom
Use
Thibodeau's a good
League
coach.
Pass to watch the Knicks.
I can now use League Pass to watch the Knicks, and I occasionally do, and Tom Thibodeau's a good coach. Turns out.
I will say, because the Knicks played the Sacramento Kings, so I actually watched them, but Reggie Bullock had probably the most hilarious stat line I've seen in a regular season performance. He had 0 points, 3 personal fouls, 0 steals, 0 blocks, 2 assists, and 3 rebounds in 21 minutes.
That's a lot.
And he's starting.
Yeah, like, I think that with the Knicks, they've just been poorly coached for so long. Just getting a competent coach in there is useful. All of the, like, long-term fear of Tom Thibodeau running people into the ground is still obviously there.
Yeah.
But at least now
He hasn't changed enough. He still likes his starters.
But at least
we'll
now they're learning, you know? Like, he's definitely running people longer minutes, but at least people are learning how to play basketball properly, which, like, for years, no one got better. Like, you went to the Knicks for a year or two, and then you left because they're a way station. Like, Julius Randle, for a long time, I thought his game was entirely empty calories, and he's playing like a different player under Thibodeau.
But I think we're dancing around the big news on the Eastern Conference, which is, even though they've lost twice in a row, the Brooklyn Nets have probably become the most potent offense in the league.
Since the Warriors, I think. So, Pete, what do you think of the Harden trade? We've got, going out from Brooklyn, they traded Jared Allen, Karis LeVert, and their entire draft future for the next
like 7 years.
7 years, I believe.
Yeah, they're not going to get one until 2026 at least. They will not have a tradable draft pick until 2026.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, there's I believe it's the Stepien rule, which prevents teams from trading consecutive year draft picks, because Bill Stepien, he was an owner of the Cavaliers. He was such a terrible owner that the owners actually created a rule to prevent other owners from fucking themselves as badly as he did. So what this rule does is you can't trade consecutive year picks. So in order to give away your entire draft future, the Nets traded their pick on alternating years, and then they traded pick swaps for every year that they did not trade away their pick, which means that Houston has the right to trade draft picks with the Nets whenever the Nets have the better pick of the two. So the Nets are not going to have a good draft pick unless them and Houston are both around the same amount of terrible for about 7 years. In return, the Nets got James Harden, one of the top 5 basketball players in the world.
Right now.
The Houston Rockets got Victor Oladipo, who is a former All-Star from the Indiana Pacers. The Indiana Pacers got Karis LeVert. Get well soon, Karis.
Recently was put on the IR when it was discovered he had cancer. Possible cancer.
They found a mass on his, I believe, kidney, when they were doing his health examination in line with this trade. So that if he hadn't been traded, they might not have detected this. So that's a good thing to come out of all this. The Cleveland Cavaliers have acquired Jared Allen in this trade. And I believe, so the Rockets get Victor Oladipo, 7 or 8 draft picks. They also get the Bucks first round pick, I think, this year. And did they get another random player?
I don't believe so.
I think those are all the relevant players, at least.
Yeah.
So, Pete, what do you think of this overall trade?
It's kind of terrifying for the Nets. I mean, to just think that you're giving up all of your draft capital for the next 7 years. But this is sort of like the paradigm we're under right now. Like LeBron did the same thing to the Lakers. Kawhi basically did the same thing to the Clippers. Like, this is the cost of competing. If you want to compete right now, is basically just mortgaging the future and stacking up. In terms of actual play, this is a terrifying offense. These are two players who can score from literally anywhere on the court. And you can't really defend that. The only thing that gives me pause is their defense.
Yes.
This is a team that gave up 115 points to the Magic. I can't remember the exact statistics, but it's something like they basically lose if they score less than 115 points a game.
Yeah.
Which is an unsustainable way to play basketball.
Well,
being said, I do think Durant's a better defender than he's probably playing right now. I will say that.
Yeah,
and Kyrie can have his moments as well as a defender.
Yeah, KD is probably their best defensive player at this point. It's him or DeAndre Jordan, probably.
God, forgot that he's still on that team sometimes.
That's a scary sentence itself.
I mean, Kevin Durant's a really good defensive player when he wants to be.
Yeah, but if DeAndre Jordan is potentially your
number
second
2?
best,
oh yeah, that's not great. You don't not this current iteration of DeAndre Jordan. He's definitely lost a step. But their offense, just KD and James Harden in a pick and roll, similar to Steph Curry and Kevin Durant in a pick and roll, it's unguardable. There's nothing you can do. Both of those players can score from everywhere. Both of them are 90% plus foul shooters. Kevin Durant is bigger than whoever you put on him, or he's faster than whoever you put on him. And then Kyrie Irving gets to just be third fiddle, occasionally commandeer the offense. Though watching the Nets with all 3 players now, they've played 1 or 2 games with the entire roster now that Kyrie's come back. Kyrie's ISO into a fall away long 2 looks way less cute when the other options on the roster are step back James Harden 3 and Kevin Durant doing anything.
Yeah, Kyrie feels awkward. I know that they probably cannot trade him. You almost can't.
You can't for a lot of reasons.
You can't for a lot of reasons. The same reason why you can't trade DeAndre, right? You can't for a lot of reasons.
But yeah,
Kyrie doesn't make sense.
No,
and
what that team needs.
His inefficiency is even more nakedly transparent than normal when you are putting him next to KD and James Harden now.
Yeah, he's
I think that James Harden has. I was amazed at how good the chemistry of James Harden and KD was, how immediate that was. But notice the immediate moment that Kyrie got added to the mix, it got a little confusing, right? You put all 3 of them, and none of them are really putting in as much effort into their defense as their offense, and it's you got 3 people who are below average defenders right now.
Well, KD's, I think, above average, but definitely Kyrie.
But he's
and
not
James
aspiring to that. That is the problem.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that just some of it is that while KD he's amazing next to anyone, if you can just get him the ball, he can isolate, but he's also an amazing standstill shooter. He can spot up from anywhere. He's got range inside of 40 feet. He's got a good post game. He's got a good mid-range game. You can just give him the ball and he'll be fine. Kyrie and James Harden both really like to pound the rock and work their guy one-on-one. And if one of them is doing that, the other one is not. and Kyrie does not really cut or do anything off ball, and neither does James Harden. If either one of them would just slash more, or set screens, or do something, some way to weaponize yourself instead of just spotting up and staying in the same spot, it would help.
Yeah, let's play hypothetical just for a second. I mean, while we're pretending things, who would you replace Kyrie with? Like, who would be a reasonable target you could swap in that would be a better fit? Because I agree, I don't think he's a good fit.
Like an actual. So are we thinking people who would actually be available, or can I just magic up who would be the?
No, we'll say people like you can't trade him for LeBron. Like people who might actually like you said, you can't trade Kyrie for both money reasons and people he loves reasons. But who would you look at? Like Bradley Beal, I feel like would be a better
Buddy
fit.
From us.
Buddy?
No, because Kyrie does everything better than Buddy Hield.
Can you give us Landry Shamet for Buddy?
No, you have to have Buddy. I'm sorry.
I don't want Buddy.
You get to have
Tyrese.
Sorry.
There's no garden ass.
So I think like the ideal fit alongside KD would and James Harden. James Harden's your point guard. He's who you want having the ball most of the time.
Right.
So you probably want either a center to help anchor your defense a little bit more. Ideally, someone who's like a Christian would be a pretty nice guy to put alongside those two.
Yeah, it would be so much easier to play around with this, even keeping Kyrie, if they could just trade DeAndre. Like, if they could get a legitimate big that just did defensive things. Even if
that's
they were
what DeAndre does. Like, that's what he's supposed to do. He's not terrible at it.
But he's washed.
He's not that washed.
He's not that washed. Okay, I'll take that, but he's not
great.
Lob City DeAndre.
He's washed adjacent.
Yes, he's on the way down. He's definitely in the cycle. We're not done yet. Maybe it's the spin cycle, but he's not completely washed yet. I think that you would want either a wing, kind of a finisher like a Paul George type, which I don't think you could get Paul George for Kyrie Irving.
Not a chance.
Not a chance.
But a good archetype. You want a wing stopper, I think. Somebody who could take some pressure off KD or Harden from guarding wings.
Yeah, so you would probably want a Jaylen Brown or a
Chris Middleton.
Middleton. But these are guys that are too good. You would not trade them for Kyrie Irving.
The Raptors are kind of a dumpster fire. Maybe you can get Pascal.
They wouldn't trade him for Kyrie Irving.
What about Brogdon?
He's a better fit, much better fit, but I wouldn't trade Brogdon for Kyrie if I was the Pacers.
Neither would I, but I think Brogdon would be a good fit there.
Totally. I mean, Patrick Beverley would be a better fit, I think.
Shit. That's the nicest thing I think I've ever heard you say about Patrick Beverley, Gino.
He's a great defender. I mean, he's like what they want is a spot-up shooter who slashes and who will guard.
What if we gave Kyrie a good bench player? Hear me out here. What if you had like Wesley Matthews as his bench player?
You mean backing him up?
Yes, or OG Anunoby.
I think that those would be great fits. I just don't see like the Nets have no flexibility to trade. And
absolutely not.
Like the only teams that would trade, I think, for Kyrie are suckers, which means the Knicks. You could probably bilk the Knicks, maybe the Bulls.
It seems like the Atlanta Hawks might hit the panic button, so you could get Chris Dunn for cheap.
You know who would actually be a really interesting fit? Again, now we're just making things up, but Ben Simmons on that team would actually be pretty cool.
Would be, but also like Kyrie, I don't know what the hell Kyrie's trade value is because he just vanished for 2 weeks. I don't know who would sign up for him for his max contract for the next 2 years.
That's the thing, too. I might be much more confident about him on the Nets. Like, they can figure this out if I knew where Kyrie's head was at. Like, if he was just a normal person I trusted, I might be more bullish on their future.
You just got to give him some sage and some crystals, Pete, and then he'll be fine. Just let him meditate, do his transcendental meditation and yoga in the center of the basketball court before the game starts, and he's fine.
He's just gotten, like, really into smudging for some reason.
Yeah. He's got one of those fucking Gwyneth Paltrow vagina candles.
Probably. But he,
Well, Pete,
but
you
he knows some
mentioned
facts
it,
about it.
your Ben Simmons woes. It's the one thing I want to say before we kind of, Gino and I pick your mind. It's kind of amazing how Daryl Morey went into the position that he did and then immediately fixed the number one problem of the 76ers, which was Al Horford's contract, and you only had to give up one draft pick.
Yeah, Morey's good. Like, Morey is what Sam Hinkie should have been.
I've said this on record before. I am amazed that he was able to get off Al Horford for one draft pick.
I mean, Al Horford's still a good player.
Sam Presti smelled that first round draft pick and he took it. He didn't look back. No takes backsies.
Yeah, I mean, Al Horford's still a good player in person. He just doesn't fit on the 76ers was the problem.
No, I mean, like, half the roster on the 76ers doesn't fit on the 76ers.
But also,
my biggest...
I would say
he's been doing good.
Daryl Morey being able to change coaches as well and getting Doc Rivers is a pretty big upgrade over Brett Brown.
Yeah, it turns out Brett Brown not that good. I think we've given him enough time. My biggest concern with the Sixers right now is their point differential. So if you look at the standings, they're 11-5 ahead of the Bucks, but the Bucks have basically double the point differential. I think they're at 8-8 and the Sixers are at 4-6. So I mean, 4-6 still a good point differential, but I don't think that's going to win you the title, obviously.
Yeah, and some of these win-loss records are so fraudulent right now because some teams they've just played bad teams multiple times because of the way the schedule's lined up. Some of these teams have taken real schedule losses where, you know, they were missing important players. They played 2 days in a row or 3 days in a row, and they just lost the third game. So, like, these standings really feel as shallow as they've ever felt in a lot of cases. I
feel good with Pete. I feel good with some of the younger players that are not Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. Like, Tyrese Maxey is okay. Matisse Thybulle probably can be a player that you want.
Yeah, I'm big on Thybulle. I'm a fan.
And surprise, surprise, Dwight on the minimum's actually a good backup for JoJo.
I don't care. I don't care how good he does. Just get his ass out of there.
He was good on the Lakers last season, and let's give him that.
He
got a ring.
He was. He also still, I feel like I've mentioned this fact before, but I always like to point it out. At a certain point, Dwight Howard was eating so much sugar that as a professional basketball player, he was still getting neuropathy in his hands. His hands were tingling from pre-diabetic symptoms. That's crazy.
Oh, God. It's horrifying.
He's eating the sugar equivalent of 20 Hershey bars a day.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, in his credit, he turned his diet around and he is playing well this season. I will give him that.
Yeah, it's just that Danny Green has that weird, like, J.R. Smith thing of going ice cold randomly, and Seth Curry was out, and that wasn't good.
Yeah, totally not. He's hopefully recovering from his bout with COVID. But yeah, I mean, it's been a weird year. I don't
know. This is not the year that they pulled the trigger on the Ben Simmons versus Joel Embiid debate, right?
You mean trading?
No.
I mean, I don't think there's much debate. If you have to pick one, I think you pick JoJo, and it's not close.
No, because beyond the fact that JoJo is just a better player, he's also much easier to deal with. Not personally, I mean, like, basketball-wise.
Yeah.
Like, Simmons needs an entire structure around him to maximize what he does.
Yeah, you need to have basically 4 knockdown shooters around him because unless he learns how to do anything from more than 5 feet away from the hoop, it's going to be really tough to have a ball-dominant, basically power forward running your offense. It feels like if Royce White actually stuck in the league. You know, this 6'9", 6'10".
It's an interesting comp.
Great passer, can't shoot as well as you'd want, and now you've just got to get all of these really good playmakers around them or shooters around them to make up for the fact. You know, 6'10" Rondo is just really tough to build around. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see whether the Sixers can keep it up. Speaking of favorite teams, ZP.
Yeah.
How are your fighting Sacramento Kings making you feel?
Bottom of the league, but at least we have a solid contender for Rookie of the Year, and I am all aboard the Tyrese Halliburton train, as the intro to this podcast may have suggested. He's great. I want us to trade Buddy so as that he can start next to De'Aaron Fox, because their chemistry is amazing. And the fact that they have not pulled that trigger so far, when there are teams that would probably get you could probably get something out of Buddy Hield right now, has made me very sad.
I'm just looking at the Kings roster right now, which is chaos, by the way. It is a very
it's
strange
bad.
roster.
It's ooh boy.
But
we got Hassan Whiteside though. Hassan's back.
I want to talk about Kyle Guy.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced is a real person.
He's a 6'1", generously a 6'2", and if he was maybe 2 inches taller, I would consider not keeping him on a two-way contract and starting, or at least putting him on the bench. But goddamn, that boy is too short.
Yeah, he's 6'1" and 167 pounds. My dude
He is
small.
a tiny man.
Yeah,
And
he's
a man
real
of
life big.
a sport of giants.
Yeah.
But man, he is. Gino and I were watching Kings game when he was playing. He's really good at scoring.
He's passable at scoring. He's okay at it. The problem is
He
he's
did
better
a
than
dagger
you'd
during a
expect.
preseason game in which he put the Warriors away. I'm still drinking, by the way.
He's better than you'd think a person named Kyle Guy is at scoring.
So, fun fact, when I was doing my Extra Life stream and I was managing the Kings, I saw Kyle Guy on the bench, and I was like, that's a really funny auto-generated name. What a great fake player that they've come up with, Kyle Guy. And then ZP in chat was like, no, he's real. That's a real boy. He's our bench two-way player. I like him. I was like, what? Really?
And then no. And then immediately you traded him once I said I liked him.
I tried to trade him. No one wanted him.
It's important to point out that he was a part of the Virginia Cavaliers they were the first seed in the NCAA. They got bounced in the first round. They were the first number one that got bounced in the first round, and then they came back and won it all the next year, and he was the primary reason for that. But yes, he's too short. He's too small. He's not even as offensively gifted or good enough at passing the ball to entertain like IT, which again, former Sacramento King that we got in the second round. But he's fun to watch, and our G League seems to be a lot more functional than it used to be. But yeah,
he seems to know what he's doing, which is nice. Like when he comes in, he seems to at least know how to play basketball, which sometimes back up point guards.
Best basketball IQ of this draft class, I will say that. He is really smart. He is the only person that we have in the roster right now that can play any form of lockdown 3-and-D defense, because you ain't getting that shit from Buddy or Harrison Barnes. And
I mean, Tyrese.
Oh man, it has been a catastrophe with starting Marvin Bagley with Harrison Barnes and Buddy. It's been a fucking disaster. And something's got to give.
ZP?
Yeah.
Question.
Yes.
Serious question.
Genuine question.
What is Marvin Bagley supposed to be good at?
He is supposed to be good at catching lobs and relying on his skyhook. He's got a pretty good floater, and he's supposed to be our kind of in-the-paint scorer. But Luke Walton, being the stupid piece of shit that he is, continues to think that he needs to work on his post defense, and he continues to put him in the post, expecting him to post up. And so he's turning the ball over a lot and losing his confidence.
Okay.
Follow-up question. Who named the mascot Slamson, and can I punch them in the throat?
Slamson is a Sacramento cherished icon. Thank you very much.
He's a tiger. I'm lion. He's a lion who basketballs.
Lion named Slamson. Yep.
I think that first off, I think that the first thing that we need to do is just fire Luke Walton. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, he's so bad.
He's so bad at his job. He's playing Kojo with Bielitsa on the same floor as like Glenn Robinson III and Harrison Barnes. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
Though, to be fair, those are the players that are on the roster, and that's not his fault.
But even then, like, he still thinks that Kojo is the backup to De'Aaron rather than Tyrese.
I mean, he's got a lot of chicken shit, and I don't know how you make a chicken salad out of it, but
he ain't fucking trying.
But he's not doing it. Like, that's for sure. Like, there's definitely ways that if this team tried to play incredibly fast, up-tempo.
Up-tempo, it's almost like we had a coach that used to do this. Up-tempo, fast, run the 5 seconds or less offense. Fucking, we should have at least given a bid to get D'Antoni as our assistant. We've got some of the players that could have made that work.
Yeah, I just don't. It's a lot of their young players have not gotten better. At this point, Luke Walton's only checkmark on his coaching career was that time when Steve Kerr was injured and couldn't coach for a few months, and then he allowed the Warriors to play on autopilot for a gigantic, long winning streak. But now he's coached the Lakers and he's coached the Kings, and both times he's looked like a not great coach.
I like our assistant coach, who is Rex Kalmanian, and then also Rex Kalmanian's his piece of advice is Alvin Gentry, which is just why
Alvin's kind of a replacement level coach at this point, right?
I mean, Alvin can at least develop young players.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that he's worse. I think Luke Walton is a below replacement level coach.
He's probably the worst coach in the league right now, with a starting job that has not been fired. I mean, and we have some big problems. Who's worse than Luke Walton?
I hate to say it, but
Dwayne Casey?
The Minnesota Timberwolves.
Oh yeah, probably.
Coach
Nick Nurse?
No, Nick Nurse is great. What are you talking about?
Where's Nick Nurse?
Nick Nurse is the Toronto. He was coach of the year last year.
While we're talking about coaches too, I'm just glad to see Frank Vogel having some more success. I thought he was a good coach in Indiana, and then Larry Bird just threw him under the bus on the way out. So good ups for Frank Vogel.
Yeah, and the head coach of the Timberwolves is Ryan Saunders, Flip Saunders' son, which, like,
not a great son.
Yeah, it's a
that
shame.
Was nepotism. You know, I mean,
it was a nepotism, but like Flip passed away, and then they turned over the team to Ryan. But it's just a shame. Like, I wish he was doing better.
We're gonna get back to the Kings in a little bit, because we still have a lot to try and figure out. The T-Wolves might be the hardest rebuild in the league right now. It's either them or Detroit. Because I don't know what you do to the T-Wolves. I literally don't know what you do.
I fire the head coach and get someone who's better.
But they're still one of the worst drafting teams in the fucking NBA.
I mean, you still have Karl Anthony Towns, and that's better than what I think the Detroit Pistons have.
But you've created this roster that doesn't work well with Cat. Like, you got Anthony Edwards and D'Lo. So who's the defender?
Anthony Edwards, you could maybe coach into it. He's got the physical tools to be a good defender. D'Angelo Russell doesn't. He's going to be bad for a long time, I think. He's just too slow-footed.
And he doesn't look good right now. So, but getting back to the Sacramento Kings, so I know neither of you. So De'Aaron Fox is really fast.
He is.
And it was really fun to watch him post up against Sabonis. That was probably the best thing that's happened this year so far for the Kings. It was great. You dunked on him.
It was very cool. I saw that happen.
And I hope that our new manager is calling the Celtics to see if they're interested of taking Buddy or Barnes with their extra cap that they've got, or their weird situation that they made money for, because you can't start Buddy, Barnes, and Bagley and expect other teams to not completely toast you on defense or on your defense. It's just there's no defense here.
Let me go back to what I said earlier about trading Kyrie Irving. If you're trying to trade Buddy Hield, you need suckers. So let's look again at the teams that are suckers. We've got the New York Knicks, who I don't think need him. We've got the Chicago Bulls, who certainly don't need him. We've got the Washington Wizards.
What about all of
who
these
don't.
rumors, Pete, that the 76ers want Buddy? I'll give you Buddy. Give me a pack of gum and some Mentos.
All right.
That would be a good fit.
Sure,
I mean,
yeah.
a shooter who can't
But I
guard
don't want
anyone.
Danny Green. You're going to have to give up Matisse.
No, I like Thibault.
I mean, Buddy Hield's better than Matisse Thybulle right now.
Yeah, no. You
I
can
mean,
have, you can have
it's
Elton Brand. You can have a new GM.
Here's Elton Brand. Enjoy.
Oh, God. And here's the thing, like, even though I think that Rashawn Holmes is doing the best defense on the team, he's averaging, like, sometimes three blocks per game, anywhere in the 2 range at lowest. We don't owe him anything. This is the last year of his deal, and he is probably not going to come back. And we are not in a position to give him the $15 to $20 million that he probably will get on another team. Like,
Yeah.
almost, and this is the reason why, and I think this is where we stopped in Discord. This is the reason why, Gino, I was saying you can't not start Marvin Bagley.
Oh, yeah, you're stuck with him.
We're stuck. Like, if we tried to trade Marvin Bagley, what are we going to get? I still give Marvin Bagley. He's still athletically incredibly gifted. The ceiling is a lot higher than Rashawn Holmes. And we have him for more than one more year. And if you tried to trade him, what are we going to get? Fucking second-round draft picks? Like, that's all you're going to get, and maybe a bench warmer.
Do you think it's too late to swap him for Luka?
I mean, if they invented a
Even
time
Mavs
machine,
would do
it
it.
probably, if a team is going to invent a time machine to go back in time, it's probably Detroit to undo the Blake Griffin contract because Jesus
True.
Christ.
That is also true.
Holy shit.
Have you tried
seen
to watch
Blake?
Blake Griffin play? It's hard
sad.
to watch.
It's just like sad. Yeah, it's like watching like a really old racehorse, and you're like, this isn't going to end well, is it?
Yeah, but if the
And
racehorse,
the sad thing is,
if the
remember,
racehorse's game was based entirely around pump fakes.
I gotta say, you remember that weird point where, like, the Detroit, again, I guess we'll come back to the Kings because Gino likes picking my brain about this. You remember that weird point where Detroit fans were really excited when they took Killian Hayes and then they traded everyone and then only signed centers?
Yeah,
They have nothing. Have you seen the Detroit Pistons roster? It's great. It's great. They have a Plumlee.
Yeah.
They've got Plumlee, Jahlil Okafor, Jeremy Grant, Seko Demboya, Blake Griffin with like a half a leg, and Isaiah Stewart.
And Derrick Rose.
Derrick Rose, which, you know what? I think we've said this before. Good on Derrick Rose for finding his niche and, like, basically reviving his career and getting into a comfortable position where he deserves to start. And I think that this is the reason why I think the T-Wolves are in a worse position than the Pistons. You could probably trade Derrick Rose.
Probably, but man, how
He's
do you
definitely
have
an alt neck tattoo to the team.
Yes, but how do you take Christian Wood, you don't sign him, but then you sign Jahlil Okafor, Mason Plumlee, and Isaiah Stewart?
And
How does
Jeremy
that
Grant.
happen? And Jeremy Grant. How do you do that? How does that happen?
That's 4 for 1, They got more players.
That's great. But they paid Mason Plumlee, I think, about as much as Christian Wood got paid.
Yeah, it was they got one of the biggest bright spots of the bubble, and they were like, yeah, we don't need this. We're set in the front court.
Yeah, and Josh Jackson. Like, they are truly the Land of Misfit Toys team. I saw Blake Griffin catch the ball right in the box. There was a guy in front of him, and I'm like, Blake's going to rise up and dunk on this guy. But instead, Blake, like, pump faked 2 times and then jumped into him for free throws.
He was so good 2 years ago, too. He was an all-star. He was killing
Remember when he was shooting threes and they were going down?
Yeah.
He's not bad right now. He's just he's a very different player than he was.
He's bad.
He
he's
still
bad.
looks, he looks bad.
He's shooting 38% from the floor.
Oh no. I haven't looked at his stats in a while.
We've hit the abyss, Gino. The moral event horizon has passed.
Do you know how many points he's averaging a game?
It's like 15, isn't it?
No, it's 12.8.
Ugh.
How many rebounds he's got? He's averaging 6.3 rebounds, 4.2 assists.
Yeah, he's bad now. Like,
Oh no.
it's not pleasant to say, but he's bad now.
Which is sad because you would almost think that if he had a good bounce back season, you could have traded him, but whatever. So, Pete, Gino and I made a bet. Gino, do you want to talk about this bet?
Yeah, so I was a fool and thought that this might be like something resembling a normal season.
Okay.
So I said, hey, Rookie of the Year, you obviously like Tyrese Halliburton. I think Tyrese Halliburton's not going to win. I think James Wiseman's going to win Rookie of the Year. What do you think? He's got Halliburton. I've got Wiseman.
Let me look up. I don't know what Wiseman's stats are either. How much burn's he getting?
He's playing about 20 minutes a game.
He's starting to regress a little bit, and bigs that are rookies take some time to really adapt to the NBA level caliber of defense.
Not bad. I mean, 11 points, 6 rebounds, 1.3 blocks.
Yeah, he's 11.6 points a game, 6.1 rebounds, 0.7 assists. He's shooting, I think, 40% from 3 right now.
A little bit
but
less.
We are both
3.75.
fools for not picking. We are both fools for not picking LaMelo.
Yeah, he's. I had no faith in him, if I'm being honest.
Yeah,
he's looking good.
He's looking okay. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how Wiseman adjusts because he basically had no college play, had no preseason. For 2 games, he looked like he didn't know what he was doing very much because he had almost no coaching. Now Draymond is back and is helping direct him around the court, and it's helped a lot. But they're also not giving him a ton of burn in terms of time.
And this is the problem that I have. It's almost as if they're treating James Wiseman as if he was like Andrew Bogut, and I think that he deserves better.
I mean, he's playing much differently than Bogut. Like, he's not just setting screens. They're running plays. They're posting him up occasionally. He's getting to spot up. If they could just teach him to take one fucking step behind the three-point line instead of one step inside of it, it'd be great because he's actually got a good jump shot. And defensively, I think once he stops his head from spinning at the speed of the game, he should be very good. Like, there's been a lot of plays I've seen him make that I thought he was just not going to have the wiggle to get in front of people. Like, there are a lot of dunks and plays he's making around the hoop where he is avoiding fouling people in ways that
which is weird because
don't.
Physically, he should be fouling people. He's the right size, he's the right height, he's the right position.
Yeah, but he's way more agile than I expected. Like, he's making a lot of JaVale McGee sort of dunks without the JaVale McGee plowing into people. He did that a few times, but he's learning how to actually avoid getting charges drawn on.
I still feel good about my Tyrese pick. That said, Pete, have you seen Tyrese's shooting form?
It's awesome.
The best. It's the best.
Well, that's my question, right? If I can answer this question with another question, it's going to be, will Tyrese continue to shoot 47% from 3?
I think he can. I mean, he shot in the 40s in college. Not 47%, but
here's
above average.
Here's the reason why I have a lot of confidence as someone who's watched almost every single game he's played. He's very selective about which threes he takes. Sometimes he only takes 4, but he hits 3 out of 4 of them. So he knows exactly where his hot spots are and will not shoot outside of them, which is a problem because sometimes he gets shut down defensively because the players that know a thing or two know about it. But he knows where to shoot. He knows where to make plays. He's very smart. He might, like I said, he has probably the best basketball IQ of any of the rookies coming in right now.
Yeah, but I think Tyrese would be my pick right now, Gino, but I don't think it's a lost cause. I think Wiseman is a strong contender as well.
I think the actual answer is probably going to be LaMelo.
It's definitely going to be LaMelo. But that wasn't an option. I wasn't given that choice. Can I pick LaMelo in this bet?
Sure, you can pick
LaMelo.
LaMelo.
I'm LaMelo now.
LaMelo is not impacting winning. That's for sure.
It's Rookie of the Year. Like,
I know,
nobody gives a shit about winning.
No one gives a shit. Michael Carter Williams got Rookie of the Year.
Hey, hey, the 76ers punched out at the perfect time on him.
Michael Carter-Williams, my man. Tyreke Evans, too. He was Rookie of the Year.
It's funny, like LaMelo Ball averaging 11.5 points per game, 6.4 rebounds, 5.9 assists. James Wiseman was 11.6 points per game, similar rebounds, almost no assists. Tyrese Halliburton, I think 11.2 points per game. These players are all sitting around right around the same sort of contribution, though. LaMelo has
I just
the highlights.
don't understand. Like, did people just think that his shooting form would not translate? I don't understand
it
why
just didn't go
Tyrese
in.
fell as low as he did.
Oh,
Like,
Tyrese Halliburton? That I
Yeah.
have no clue. I thought he should have been in the top 10. He seemed really, really skilled. Like, he plays inside of himself. He just doesn't have the ceiling that some of these other players do. Like, he
oh no,
doesn't.
absolutely not.
He avoids doing things he's bad at instead of trying to grow his game, which is good for helping you win now, but it's not.
Which
like
is good for also the Kings, because if he's just gonna feed De'Aaron or like pass the ball to De'Aaron, I'm okay with a pass first shooting guard alongside De'Aaron.
Yeah, the only thing I think with Tyrese, his ceiling, because of his low release point and his kind of slow
His
wind up,
flipper handoff, or the way that he shoots the ball, it's great. I love it.
it's
the same
very
reason
cool,
why
but-
I like Jokic dunking the ball and he only gets like 2 inches off from the floor is the same reason why I like Tyrese's shooting form.
I just think that because of his shooting form, it might be tough for him to start to create separation and get his own when he wants to. Like right now, he's mostly spotting up. So I definitely get why he fell a little bit. Like his ceiling's probably a little bit lower, but like I think I want him over Killian Hayes.
Sure. I think also people were dunking on the Bulls for taking Patrick Williams. He's doing all right.
Yeah.
Can we talk about Jokic?
Yeah.
Let's talk about
My
the
man,
most
killing
fun
it.
player during all of this depression and angst.
Yeah,
Jokic is great, dog.
For Christmas, my father got me he originally got one of the Denver, their new City Edition jerseys for Jokic, but they're not shipping until later this year. And I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. You know, I won't have anything to open on Christmas, but, you know, I know that it's coming. And he was like, nah, let me rectify that. And he got me a Michael Porter Jr. jersey.
Oof.
And I was
That's
like,
a good looking City jersey.
Yeah.
it is.
That's
but
sharp.
I also feel like they owe royalties to a different team for them, but
Yeah,
that aside.
They look like the Jazz jerseys, City jerseys from a year or two ago. Same color scheme, at least. But yeah,
Jokic is great.
he is. He's so good. He makes every chubby child should look at Nikola Jokic and then just go, look, I can be an NBA player.
But he lost a lot of weight.
He did. And now
if you're going to talk about the funny chubby
He's still
child in
chubby.
the NBA, we could talk about Luka Doncic and how he looked at the start of the season.
Fat Luka.
Oh, it's so good. He started to lose weight and it hurt so much. But back to Jokic. He's the smartest person in the league right now.
No, LeBron still is, but he's up there.
He's up there. And you know, LeBron is still probably the best passer, but Jokic is the one that puts a
Maybe.
smile on my face every time he chucks the ball.
I don't know if LeBron's a better passer than Jokic, but it's close. Like, they're two of the greatest passers ever. The sorts of passes that Jokic makes sometimes with his leads, where the ball maybe is going 5 miles an hour, and it threads through like 2 or 3 people and somehow hits a guy right in the hands. No one does that. Like, there are passes only LeBron can make, like a left-handed from the left side of the court, making a left-handed throw to the right corner for a 3. Like, LeBron's maybe the best at that. But Jokic, just from the middle of the court, what he can do is incredible. He's averaging 25.5 points per game, 11.3
Have you seen his
rebounds.
PER right now on ESPN? He's
No.
leading the league on PER. It's 31.8.
Assists per game, 9.9. Just ludicrous. Unheard of. Unprecedented. So we need to wrap. But one last thing. I have a question for both of you. Do you think the team should be allowed to have a number 0 and a number 00? Because there are multiple teams that do, and I don't know how to feel about it.
You think you should only get what, 0?
You should only get one. So on the Denver Nuggets, JaMychal Green is 0.
Identical.
JaMychal Green is 0. Marcus Howard is 0. On the Portland Trail Blazers, Carmelo Anthony is 0, and Damian Lillard is 0.
Let Melo break the rules. Let Melo break the rules. I'm fine with if you're gonna give a 0, don't you give it to Melo, Gino?
You do, but I just think you should not be able to have this. You're cheating. Like, someone should have to be -1. Just abuse this, you know?
Let's see. My real question is, so like in high school basketball, you can only have jersey numbers that the ref can signal to the scores table. So you could have like 55, but you couldn't have 56 because there's no way to signal it. That's where I think the big question is. If you're going to let the NBA players pick whatever numbers they want, you can't decide you can only have 1-0 or 0-0.
No, you know what? I don't like it. I don't like. Well, I do like that Damian Lillard is 0 for Oakland. I think they say when they announce him that he's wearing the letter O, which is fun.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna give a 0-0, you give it to Melo. One thing that I'll ask, Gino.
Yes.
Because normally we give you some time to glow about Luka. Let's give you like 2 minutes.
I mean, he's very good. Luka Doncic is incredible. Everyone should have known he was going to be incredible this whole time. I like that he's adapted the James Harden paunch, and in addition to his play that is very Harden-esque, he's just following in the footsteps of greatness.
All I will say is that the roster around him, he deserves better, because holy shit, Tim Hardaway Jr. doesn't make sense anymore, and then also Kristaps Porzingis is probably the number 2 option, but he is not reliable.
Well, he's getting back from injury. Like, there's a lot of players
played
who have
more
been
than
in and
70
out.
games since 2016, Gino.
They got Boban.
They do have Boban.
What else do you need?
Nothing else. I love that Boban's like a legitimate bucket. Like, he's so good on offense. But it's just all him lightly tossing the ball in, because for him it's just so easy. But man, can he not play defense? Not even a little bit.
Have they pulled the trigger on what they want to do with Tim Hardaway Jr.? Because I don't want him next to Luka anymore.
I don't know. I think they're keeping him because his contract is too big. At least
That's
until he runs out of money on his contract. So yeah, if this is the NBA this year, it's going to be a lot of weirdness. It's going to be a roller coaster, and we're not doing any of the superlative award guessing or playoff guessing that we would normally do, because this season might not even finish.
Real talk.
Yeah.
Do any of us actually think that this season will complete?
I think it will complete, but I think that the standings, even including the play-in tournament that's happening this year. So for those who don't know, instead of just the top 8 teams from each division making the playoffs, the 9th and 10th seeds will play games against the 8th and 7th seeds. If the 9th and 10th seeds can win 2 games in a row, they take the playoff spot from the higher seeded team. So there's this little play-in tournament, but even with the play-in tournament, I'm not sure that the standings are going to make any dang sense this year.
Sure, and really then on top of that, I think Zach Lowe did the math. The players don't have a lot of time between the end of this season, in quotations, till the next season. They're going to get a couple months, and then we're back in it.
Yeah, it's going to be a very weird year. So with that, it's another episode of our NBA show. Thank you, Pete.
Yep. It's always nice to talk hoops. We'd just like things to be a little bit more normal, I guess.
Certainly. Thank you, ZP.
Fuck you, Vlade.
And thank you, listeners. If you want to get in touch with the show, you can do so at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment sections, and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. You can also support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens. Till next time, peace.